Okay, in this screen recording, we're going to go over some of the verbals, which was part of your grammar worksheet for this week too. Verbals are only important to know so that you don't think they're a verb, because they are words that look like verbs, but they're not acting like that. They're acting as either nouns or adjectives or something like that. So it's important that you at least be able to identify them in a sentence so that you know if it's what it's agreeing with, where it should be placed, etc. So let's look at some of the examples that I have here. They're a little different than the examples that you have in the tutorial that you can find under readings for week 2. Also under readings for week 2, I added another link to another page website that talks a lot about verbals and gives lots of examples. So let's go over some of these. One of the types of verbals is called a participle. Okay, the key thing to remember about a participle is that it looks like a verb, but it's going to act like an adjective. Okay, so it looks like a verb, but it acts like an adjective. So here are some sentences. Drooling saliva over the day's mail, the barking boxer quickly singled out the parcel from the bills and junk mail. Okay, I truly believe in any sentence, if you're trying to get some kind of understanding of grammar, is just to focus on the subject and verb first. So let's find who is doing what. Okay, a boxer, okay, has singled out a parcel. Okay, that's our subject and verb. There is another word in here that looks like a verb, isn't it? Drooling. We can drool, it's a verb, but here, what does drooling do? What is it? How is it acting in the sentence? It's not the verb, okay? Here's our subject and here's our verb. And if it was going to be a verb, it would be with an and, it would be added in there. But it's not. It's describing boxer. Think about it, yeah. Okay? So this is the phrase that we're going to look at, and we'll learn about phrases and sentences later, but just right here, this right here is describing this boxer. Okay? So drooling is an adjective because boxer is a noun, so anything that describes a noun is an adjective. So this is an adjective. So that's a participle. Okay? So again, sometimes it's part of a bigger kind of phrasing like that. Sometimes it's a simple word right there before boxer. Okay? Bark is a verb. Okay? But in this sentence, it's acting as an adjective. It's describing boxer. Okay? So here we have two participles. We have drooling. Maybe put a little underline under there. We have drooling and we have barking. These are our participles. Okay? And again, what's this? Just a plain verb. Okay? So don't get those confused. Those are participles. Sometimes they are an ing, sometimes they're ed. Okay? Baked in the oven for over 6 hours, the roast was ruined. Okay? So where's our subject? Where's the roast? Okay? Now, then we have two verbs in this sentence. We have baked and ruined. But which one is the actual verb in the sentence? It's ruined. Was ruined. When you see a helping verb like that, was, is, that's usually going to be just a verb, a regular verb there with that. Okay? So baked in the oven, the roast was ruined. Baked is doing what? It's describing roast. Roast is a noun, so therefore it's an adjective. Okay? So let's see, think for a minute. I'm going to give you a second to look at this last sentence here and ask yourself, what is the subject and what is the verb? Okay, right, here's our subject and here's our verb. Okay, now what's something in the sentence that looks like a verb but is not being a verb? Okay, and how do we, how do we look for those kinds of things? They're going to have EDs, they're going to have INGs. Not always, but most of the time. So right, here is our participle. It's describing diet. So it looks like a verb. Balance, we can balance something. So it looks like a verb, but it's describing a noun, so it's an adjective. That's a participle. Okay? Now our second one, gerunds. And for some reason, people always seem to know this word, but they don't always know what it is. Okay? So the easiest way to identify gerunds is they end in ing, so they kind of, what's the difference between a participle and a gerund? We're going to learn that. So these end in ing, but it's a noun, not an adjective. Okay, so it's going to be a noun. Okay, so let's take a look at these sentences. I stole this from somewhere, so there's no shading here, but let's take a look at this sentence. You don't stop laughing because you grow old. You grow old because you stop laughing. Okay, subject verb, you, and then do what? Don't stop. Very good. You do not stop. That's our subject verb. So what is laughing here? Laughing is a verb. We can do, it's something that we can do. We could say you laugh. But here it's a thing, right? It's what we're not stopping. So it's a direct object. So it's a noun. You can't stop doing what? You can't stop what? I'm sorry. You can't stop what? You can't stop laughing. Okay? So it's a gerund. In this case, it's a direct object. Okay? Now we have it again here in the same way. You stop laughing. Okay? So it's a thing as opposed to a verb in this sentence. Okay? Now let's take a look at this sentence. Singing the words out loud helped him with his stammer. Okay? So we find our subject and verb. Now it's going to be a little harder this time, so let's just start with our verb. Where's our verb? Helped. Very good. So what helped him? Singing the words out loud did, right? So this is a noun. This is the subject. Singing the words out loud helped him. And if all these extra words get in your way, just look for the ing word and get rid of the rest of them and see if that works. Singing helped him with his stammer. Okay, so right. So here we have a verbal, we have a gerund acting as a noun. Okay, so gerunds are really easy to find with the ing. Okay, but you got to remember they're not going to be the verb, they're going to be the noun. Okay, so here, I started by photographing birds in my garden. Okay, so who started? I started. Okay, photographing. So we know that's a noun because we have I started what? Photographing. But actually it's not a direct object because it's not really I started what? It's I started by. So what is this again? From our parts of speech, it's a preposition. So right, so this is an object of the preposition. So you just need to know that that's a noun. Okay? So that's a gerund. Now I'm going to write a sentence here so you can understand that it's not always just because it ends in ing. So if we had something like he was singing too loudly, okay, you might say, well, there's an ing, so this must be a gerund. It's a noun. But he and singing aren't the same thing. Singing is what he is doing in this sentence. So again, if it has this little helper verb with it, it's not going to be a gerund. It's just going to be a verb. Okay? So that's why I say looking up at those subjects and verbs really helps out a lot for when you're doing that. Okay, so finally let's look at infinitives. Infinitives are really easy in my book, okay? Because infinitives are their verb forms with the to in front of them, like to dance, to sing, to be, okay? So to me they're really easy to find. So let's, here, to win was everything. Yep, right there it is, okay? Now, I can't remember if I asked you on your worksheet or not if you had to tell me how it's used in the sentence, but here's an infinitive, okay? So let's look at the sentence. What was everything? Because here's our verb. What was everything? To win was everything. So that's our subject, and that's going to be a noun. So notice that you can use infinitives as nouns. Okay, here we have the man paid to watch. Okay, so there's our infinitive. Now this one's a little harder because we might be tempted to say man paid what? This isn't what he paid, it's how he paid, so it's describing this verb. Right, so it's an adverb. Okay, I don't know that I make you do that, but just so you know, that's an infinitive, it's describing the verb, so it's an adverb. Okay, and then down here, to find, right? She needed what? Okay, right, in that case it's a noun again. Okay, so that's what you need to know, is just to be able to identify them. Probably one of the biggest things that you want to look for on your verbals, and one reason too that you want them, is that when you are looking at, particularly these happens with participles, and it's called a dangling participle, and this is the funny sentence I like to use for it. So let's say we have this sentence here, roller skating down the street, the cows were seen by the little girl. Okay, now ask yourself, what are the chances that the cows were the ones roller skating down the street? Okay? No, it's not, right? It's going to be the little girl. So when you write a sentence like this sounds like you want to put your participle phrase, the phrase that's describing that noun, as close as you can to the noun that it's describing. So one way we could fix this sentence is to say the cows were seen by the little girl roller skating down the street. But that's also passive tense, and I bet you Jason hit you upside the head on that one, right? No passive tense. So instead we would say roller skating down the street, the little girl saw the cows, right? Exactly. So always that's what you want to avoid. This is called a dangling participle. So you might, oops, can't spell, dangling participle. So you might see that in a future copy editing assignment or something like that. So you want to be careful of those. Okay, so hopefully going through this will help you as well as looking at the resources that I have there as you work on the grammar worksheet 3. Let me know if you have any questions.